I think this is kind of a cool page where it explodes. Like you have to.
Mm-hmm.
This is like the appearance of Time Trapper on this page, the third panel, like this explosion, and then there's the stuff swirling around in the fourth panel, and then you see these kind of wiggly. It almost looks like smoke going up in kind of a wiggly pattern. And it continues that way in the next panel with Mon-El saying, "You'll have to kill me first." And then it's almost undetectable in this panel. There's a little outline of Mon-El getting blasted with a bright light. You have to look real close.
Oh, I see.
I didn't even notice it until I was doing my little black and white version here, and it's this shape.
Does it stand? Oh, wow! It even picked that up.
I had to kind of revert, like invert it, kind of.
Oh, okay,
but it's like
makes sense.
Like you imagine this as like white on top of yellow. It's like something hitting Mon-El and blowing him up.
Right. So this probably, I mean, it probably would have worked better if the cutout there was just like solid white, right?
Yeah, or something like that. Yeah, instead of it being an outline, be a silhouette, a white silhouette.
Right.
And then in the last panel, Mon-El is prone on the ground. I still have not deciphered what happens in the eighth panel. He screams, but I don't know what I'm supposed to be seeing here. Like if it's supposed to be like an extreme close-up of Mon-El like flying across my point of view, or what. Like there's always things hidden in these kind of Giffen drawings, and you can't quite pick them up sometimes. And then in the last panel, you can see like a figure beginning to form in the wiggly smoke.
Standing above him to the right.
Yeah, and it's this guy on the next page. It's like a whatever, a rocky form that Time Trapper takes on. But he's swirled him up, conjured him out of the dust of the pocket universe, I guess. And this was in issue 52. Like he did the same thing in that issue.
Right.
I had the idea that maybe when they had this fight in issue 4, they just kind of redrew it or something, but it's not. It's not exactly the same. It's kind of whatever the 90s version of that 80s special effects. Yeah.
When we covered 50, I think we noticed the parallels, the similarities between that and this.
But yeah, Mon-El just fights him for 3 pages. It's almost filler in a way, just like the brute fist fight aspect of it. But I encourage people, if they can look at it in black and white, you should check it out. It's pretty cool. I think it's better than this fight scene is better in black and white than in color.
It is. I mean, not a lot is happening here, especially compared to the rest of this book that is so dense with exposition. But it is kind of a nice change of pace to actually just have some almost no words, just pure action panel to panel in this series. This is like the most we've seen of that so far anyway.
But I think this stuff in black and white is pretty interesting. Like just seeing all this, all the little bits that Giffen and Gordon are putting into this.
Gosh, I really wish they did the essentials for this.
Yeah, and you can almost kind of follow the action of, like here's a fist punching out Mon-El, and it's got the speed lines kind of showing you which way things are moving and swirling in this limbo area.
Right, that panel looks a lot better than the color one.
Yeah, you totally overlook it in color.
Essentials. I meant DC Showcase.
I want a fucking IDW is going out of business, but I wish there was a artist edition.
Is that official?
No, but
come on. You're just talking about
This looks like different lettering from the rest of it, a little bit.
The
regenerate this. Actually, the then is somebody else, and everything else is Todd Klein. Don't know why they needed to add then. They need to get the production department to put in the word then.
I believe you, I guess. I guess I've overestimated my ability to discern that stuff because I'm having a tough time seeing enough consistently different stuff
I don't know. I mean, maybe I'm giving myself too much credit here. To me, they look different. It looks like a different letterer does some of this stuff. And not that it even matters. I don't know. Yeah, like pointing it out doesn't really serve any purpose, I guess.
It's also harder for me because I'm used to. It's a lot easier to distinguish things now because you can just because more often than not it's a computer font, so it's going to be uniform. Mm-hmm. Every letter is going to be uniform over and over and over, so you can look for to make sure to see any inconsistencies. But hand lettering, they're never going to. The letter, his letter forms are never going to be 100% the same.
Yeah, but like in the same way that you can tell the difference between John Workman lettering and Todd Klein lettering, like when you see like a weird correction and it's a totally different hand, that's what I see, I guess.
I'm gonna get better at this. I'm gonna learn to tell these letters apart.
All right, I hope so.
You've pointed out a weakness. I've realized I have a blind spot here, and it's going to drive me crazy.
Your comic book comprehension is not 100%. Damn, you're missing out on things.
Right. So the first panel is pretty funny. It's pretty good.
Yeah. On this page, it goes back to Brainiac 5 and Shadowlass fighting the probe. Yeah, Shadowlass uses her power to turn out the lights. Mm-hmm. And Brainiac 5 is like, that doesn't work on the probe because it doesn't have eyes, but you did, however, render me quite useless.
Right.
Or helpless.
Right.
Kind of a funny line. Another Mr. Spock kind of line. Mm-hmm. I wonder if Keith Giffen does think of him as Mr. Spock, and then these other writers they don't follow that. They think, I don't know, is there another like big kind of archetypal type of whatever Star Wars sci-fi character who is smart, and the smartness just makes that person into a shithead? Like you mentioned Sherlock, but this is way before Sherlock, you know?
Yeah, I don't think this character is Sherlock. But he doesn't really feel like Mr. Spock to me either, though.
Yeah, he's like Mr. Spock, like in the movies. And again, another way that this is the 5 years later period is like the Star Trek movies or something versus the show. But it makes me think of like Daffy Duck, and you know how the Bob Clampett Daffy Ducks, he's just crazy and funny, and he's not mean or malicious. Yeah, he's literally Daffy.
Right.
But then you get into the later ones, and they're all the Chuck Jones ones. He's just a dick. Like you fucking hate him.
You're despicable.
Yeah. And even Bugs Bunny's kind of an arrogant asshole. But Daffy Duck, he's mean-spirited and he's a dickhead. You don't like him at all. And it's like, you put those two together, it's like, this isn't even the same character. Somewhere along the line, somebody decided, his character is that he's a shithead, you know, instead of being Daffy.
Yeah, I don't know if maybe they were trying to make him more like Donald, because Donald has more of that personality, or maybe it was just because they started putting him with Bugs a lot, and then you can't have, they basically had identical kind of, they were the guys who never got hurt. You can't have two of those guys together. One of them has to be the guy who everything backfires on. I
think maybe, yeah. I mean, part of it too, I think, is the Chuck Jones style of storytelling is not, it's not animated. Like it starts to be a pose to pose type of cartooning rather than like wild takes and a lot of movement and stuff, where so to make that funny, you start doing this deadpan type of stuff where I squint my eyes to show that I'm mad instead of exploding to show that I'm mad or something, you know. So maybe that's where it comes from. Like you have to have these like big personalities. I mean, that's not applicable to Brainiac 5, but that's just what I thought of as the Daffy Duck personality discrepancy.
Right.
Brainiac 5, he sucks now. He was so good before.
You're the first person to ever make that comparison.
I hope so. That's what makes our YouTube channel unique.
Yeah. I think Daffy's all right. I kind of like Donald better, but because he's a
I like
bastard.
I like Bob Clampett Daffy Duck. I don't like Chuck Jones Daffy Duck.
I mean, I grew up watching a lot of the Bob Clampett stuff because we had all those cheap public domain VHSs with him.
Uh-huh.
So yeah, I like him. He kind
Like
of made a
somebody
comeback in Roger Rabbit, didn't he?
Yeah. That's like the Bob Clampett one.
Right.
Like, yeah, you wouldn't even put that fucking boring ass, mean spirited Chuck Jones one in Roger Rabbit. That would be a waste of time. He'd just
Right.
stand there and quip or whatever. He'd be annoying.
I guess maybe because I'm old and curmudgeonly now, I find myself sympathizing more with the grumpy Donald or Daffy than I used to. But I generally like, definitely when I was a kid, I thought the early one was better.
I think when I was a kid, I liked the kind of the Chuck Jones ones, but maybe I didn't know the difference. I think I started to think that Chuck Jones was the best cartoons because
It just depends on, I mean, if it's a solo Daffy, where he's up against someone who's clearly the villain, Elmer Fudd or someone, then I think he's more likable. When they put him next to Bugs Bunny, they seem to accentuate his dickishness.
Yeah, that's true. Just those ones are the most famous, like the Wabbit season, Duck season ones with the signs, all that shit.
But he gets all the laughs if you think about it. Like, yeah, Bugs is getting away with everything. He's getting shit on the whole time, but in a way, Bugs is just the straight man.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Bugs is fucking boring because he gets away with everything. It's like Mickey Mouse has no personality. He's totally boring.
Oh, he's the worst.
Though there's these new ones my kid watches. They're pretty funny. I don't know if you've seen any of them.
New Mickey Mouse? I haven't watched any of those. I've heard they're good. Steven Stefano worked on them.
Oh, yeah. I mean,
huge fan of that guy.
First time I've ever actually laughed at a Mickey Mouse cartoon.
Huh. Yeah, I should watch them. I mean, there's the new Looney Tunes too.
Those things are built so much on things you can't do anymore. It's like Popeye. If you can't smoke and you can't punch people, and I mean, if you strip all that out, what's left?
Anyway, let's get back to this comic. This whole page is Shadowlass killing this probe.
Right.
And I don't quite know what happens. She dispatches the probe at the end. The probe is like, you're too weak. You won't kill me. And Shadowlass is like stomping in the final panel of the page and says, you can't kill something that's already dead. And it's this like cloud of dust.
Like, is it entropying real fast and just breaking down and crumbling?
I guess so. But on the next page, you see that the body of this probe is still complete, but there's like a puff of smoke. And I wonder if Shadowlass has like stomped the head of this probe to dust or something.
I think it is the head.
Yeah, because Brainiac 5 is like, that was our only lead. You killed it or destroyed it.
And you've got that strategically placed puff of smoke right above the shoulders on the third panel.
Yeah. Oh, you know what? Yeah, it is. It's actually like you can see the ear right where it says Kroof. Mixed in, there's the ear of the probe. So she's like smashing the face of the probe into the ground.
What's it look like? What's it look like in black and white?
It looks like this.
So not necessarily.
It is more clear. Yeah. See, like right here is the ear and my dirty fingernail.
Mm-hmm.
This is the back of the neck. Oh. And so the face is being smashed into the ground down here.
Oh, yeah.
Does that seem right? Like over here is the shoulder or I guess this would be the shoulder of the robot.
Yikes.
And that explains this cloudy area around its head on the next page. So she's brutal, Shadowlass, in taking out this thing.
Brainiac 5 looks like he's reading a magazine.
He's like waiting for her to kill this thing while he's reading Popular Science.
Not sure that was a good idea.
But for a second she's pissed at him because he's kind of telling her off for flying off the handle.
Right, he wasn't much help, but now he's sort of like complaining about the way she she dispatched him, but it wasn't like he was doing anything.
Well, he was blind. He said she blinded him.
Right.
Yeah, and this whole 2/3 of this page, page 14, is supposed to be in pitch blackness, but they've kind of brightened it up so we can see what's happening, see Shadowless killing this thing. But yeah, now Brainiac 5's whole lab is kind of decayed into garbage. Mon-El is gone. Their only lead to finding him has turned to dust and is gone.
Mm-hmm. I think maybe he looked at a photo or something, but the bottom middle panel is really good. Like, it's very evocative of the emotion, and the tears don't look melodramatic.
Yeah, like the expression on her face is it's more emotional, more complex, I guess, emotionally than Giffen tends to do.
Right, it's like a more sophisticated show of emotion than I'm used to seeing in comics like this in general. I mean, it's a kind of putting up a brave face, but shedding a slight tear, but
right,
or dripping.
Yeah. There's also this where she's kind of glaring at him in this wordless panel here.
Right.
This is even a good drawing. This is more of just she's just like emphatic or whatever and angry, but yeah, good range of emotions on the Shadowless character on these couple of pages. Mm-hmm. Giffen's good. He's good at this stuff, right?
He is.
And even up to now, or like he did that last year of issues on the Baxter series. Prior to that, maybe I wouldn't have expected this level from him. Like, he was good, but this is kind of a new thing, I think.
Yeah, it seems like maybe he's married in some of that Maguire.
Yeah.
The Maguire faces into his more standard style.
Right, yeah. Like, he's fully absorbed the Kevin Maguire style. He's a sponge. Mm-hmm. He's who is he? Duplicate boy of comics.
Yeah.
Like, all he has to do is look at it once, and he can redraw the Jose Munoz panel verbatim for Ambush Bug. I mean, he must have done like 4 years of Kevin Maguire comics. Like, yeah, he.
You mean from Justice League?
Yeah. Giffen knows he's got the whole toolbox of Kevin Maguire memorized.
Right. For sure. Especially, I mean, doing those breakdowns, it seems inevitable he would start kind of drawing them for Maguire, like in the style Maguire works.
And probably half of Maguire is derived from Giffen, right?
Yeah.
And Al Gordon, even. Like, Al Gordon was inking those comics too.
So I can't think of a lot of stuff McGiffen. That's who this is. I can't think of a lot of stuff Maguire did that Giffen didn't have some hand in.
Not very much. Like, he did some kind of creator-owned thing for like Malibu Ultraverse or something, maybe, that didn't have Giffen. And then this much more recent Superman, I don't know which, that he drew that didn't have any Giffen in it. But yeah, it's almost all Giffen and DeMatteis stuff.
I wonder how well it holds up without Giffen. Does it just kind of turn into Adam Hughes?
I mean, it's so many years later, like, I actually kind of prefer the earlier stuff, the Justice League stuff, to the whatever the hell, the 2020 looking stuff.
It's too polished now.
It looks really smooth, and like they all look like they're made out of rubber, and I don't know.
Yeah.
And he does a lot of stuff where he must be guiding the colorist, and like a lot of the lines are not black anymore. They fill in the line work with,
like, they're coloring the line
like, if
work,
it's
replacing the line work with
it must be like one process almost, where it's not like he does the black line and turns it over to some colorist. It's like he or his studio or somebody is like turns in the final work and it's in color, and they do it this way. Like, every now and then, like, I'll see like black and white cartooning of a pretty girl with like lips, right? And her lips are black with like a highlight on it,
Right.
Of white, and you can see the teeth in there.
Right.
And then somebody gets the bright idea to, well, a mouth is red, so they'll turn that black completely red. And it's like, oh, that looks weird. That's wrong. It's all the lines are supposed to remain black.
Right.
And then like that highlight, you can make that highlight red, you know, to make it look like shiny red, dark red lipstick or something on her. But they don't do it that way. They make the whole mouth red, and it looks weird and wrong. And that's kind of what this Kevin Maguire stuff looks like, only to the nth degree, where everything is colored something, and there's no black line at all.
Well, that's not possible, right? Like, what about the face? Like, is the nose and...
Well, like, let's say it's a Supergirl. She's this white chick. She's blonde.
Right.
The black lines on her face, they color them like a darker brown color, like a shade or two darker than her skin. Right?
Yeah.
And then the lines that do her hair, they're not black anymore. They make those yellow and make her hair a slightly lighter yellow, for example.
Right.
On and on over everything, the whole image.
I mean, I feel like I've seen something like that done to good effect before, but the way you're describing it doesn't sound good.
To me, it doesn't work on Kevin Maguire. Like, there's this guy, Daniel Acuna. Have you seen this guy's artwork? It's really computery looking, but it works. To me, it looks good. It looks right to do it in this style. And he's mostly done Marvel stuff, I think. Like, he did an Eternals series or mini-series, I think. But
didn't Kyle Barker kind of do that? Kyle Baker.
Yeah, Kyle Baker kind of does that to a degree, yeah. And I mean, Kyle Baker, like, his stuff, it's always kind of an experimental type of thing, right, you know? So it's like you kind of forgive him if it looks weird, because like he's just trying everything to make comics faster, it seems like, you know? Yeah. And he's funny, so it doesn't matter.
Right.
I don't know. All I'm trying to say is that the most recent Kevin Maguire stuff I've seen is not to my taste exactly.
Right.
Not that he's bad, not that he's getting worse, but actually I think the polish is, I don't know, it's not my thing. I like more traditional cartooning, black and white or black line type of stuff.
Yeah. I've seen this guy's work before, the Daniel Acuna guy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, maybe it's because I'm less familiar with newer stuff, but a lot of it looks the same to me. Like, I know it's not identical, but they all look kind of like, to me, they remind me of, do you remember that guy, Sean Phillips? He did like Hellraiser for a long time.
Yeah.
Or Hellblazer. I feel like everybody's drawing like him nowadays. So this sort of, it's like they like threshold a photocopy and then trace that. So there's like deep shadows under the nose, and the eyes are just black kind of triangles.
Yeah, I see that. I see that in the Daniel Acuna stuff too. Mm-hmm. But I think what I like about his artwork is that it still has like a cartoony exaggeration to it. Okay. Like, they're still super people, but he'll have different body types, and he'll stretch them when they do like move fast or whatever and stuff like that.
Oh yeah, that's good.
And so I like that about it. And the color treatment is kind of insane sometimes, and I kind of like that about it.
Yeah. There's a few guys, like, I can't even remember exactly who, other than Walt Simonson, guys who will draw more or less representationally, but will kind of cartoon parts of it. And sometimes that works terribly, but some guys can really make them blend well. Right.
Yeah, I think the cartoony exaggeration is lost on a lot of people, and has been for a long time. Like, they think they're embarrassed by doing stuff like that. Meanwhile, to me, that is comics. That's what you can do with it, you know? Like, like if you look at old comics, like North American comics, you look at manga, they do that. Manga, they go to wild extremes.
Right. Yeah, that's actually a good example. They do that.
Yeah, but just like making a guy look different if he's flying at light speed versus just standing there, totally makes sense to me, versus he looks exactly the same no matter what he's doing. And I don't know, it's like all that kind of on model type of thinking too, like, kind of drives me crazy, because you can make it look funnier, make it look more dramatic, et cetera, et cetera.
Right.
And there's not a reason not to do that unless you're just embarrassed about the medium or working in. Like, why are you doing this? You know?
What Simonson does, and I know he's not, there are other guys do this too. Like sometimes if it gets to like a more comedic scene, like maybe the girl's yelling at the guy, all of a sudden the guy will have like big dot eyes. Like they'll start to have more like cartoony faces. Well, then it'll switch into something more photorealistic. It just kind of goes back and forth.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of people who just don't understand that.
Right.
You know? But yeah, that's like, you totally see that in manga and anime. You see that in Keith Giffen comics. You see that in Adam Hughes comics, you know? Even like this pinnacle of quote unquote comic realism, Adam Hughes, he still does cartoony stuff like that.
Right.
And some people accept that. Other people and others, they won't.
Jaime's kind of good at like switching back and forth.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like they're very blended.
Yeah. But for some reason, it seems like there are certain people who are incapable of that. And I think there are certain readers who they'll be like, I really like Jaime Hernandez, except for when he does that stupid cartoony stuff where they get hearts for their eyeballs and shit like that. You know, it's like, come on, just accept it. Just get on board. You know, like that. Right. That is, it makes an emphasis. That's the cartooning in this stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, the last 30 years or so, comics have almost, it's like they're embarrassed that they're comics.
I know.
It's like they made a list of, or maybe they saw some list that Scott McCloud or someone like that made of all the things that make comics unique, and they're like, we need to get rid of that. No more thought balloons. That's ridiculous. People don't have thought balloons, and no more motion lines, and
like they take that food pyramid thing that Scott McCloud did, where it's like there's a realism in one corner and like the the Roy Crane in the other, and whatever. It's like everything except for this one corner should go. You know, give me a break. Like that's the best stuff that you decided to get rid of. The stuff that really helps you sell this and gets you excited and makes people laugh, makes people cry, whatever. Like this is too extreme, you know? Why would you, come on.
Well, it's almost
like this. She's making a mean face. We shouldn't have that, you know? Not stoic enough.
It's almost like you want the opposite of what the producers of the comics want. They want their stuff to more closely resemble film because they're kind of trying to move into film. But at least I feel like whatever form the work's in should try to capitalize on, like, do things with that form that you can't do with other forms. Otherwise, why do it? So, I mean, if you just limit it to what film can do, it's like a second-rate film because it can't do the things that only film can do.
Right.
It should just do things film can't do that only comics can do, or at least don't do those things. That's what makes them special.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense to leave out the stuff that really makes the medium unique, right? Speaking of that, fist fight. This is more of that, more of the Limbo Dust Storm universe. Mon-El still fighting the Time Trapper.
And he seems to be able to regenerate himself as fast as he beats him up or breaks him up, so he decides to just see how fast he can regenerate and just try to smash him up at super speed and see if he can overwhelm him, I guess. Destroy him before he can put himself back together.
Yeah, that's literally all that happens on these 2 pages, right? Like, they're fighting, and Mon-El's like, oh, you regenerate every time I beat you up. I'm going to try and beat you up faster. Right. And that happens in this panel. Like almost to the end of these two pages.
And there they are, doing just what we were talking about. There's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's got 6 fists there.
Yeah, this is he goes all like Fist of the North Star on him. Did you ever see that?
Yeah.
And he's like, what is he? He has like a weird battle cry, and he he says something crazy and goes, la 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 la, while he's punching you so fast.
Right. So I was seeing more like Seeger Popeye there, but yeah, I see.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Oh, and on the top there, and I don't think I even saw this reading it, but it's clearly the two of them charging one another.
Right. Yeah, they even kind of color it that way. It's, to me, it's, I don't know, it looks good in black and white too.
Yeah.
You don't know who's who exactly, but they're going to go after each other. And then it becomes this big explosion. They explode here, and it radiates out this away.
Right. I don't think I've ever heard of thoof before.
A kathoof.
Oh, it's Cthulhu. I missed the Cthulhu.
That's like two two sandbags hitting each other and go.
Oh yeah.
But Monel's beating the shit out of this time trapper golem, and time trapper's like, please stop doing that. And Monel's like, did you say please? You used the magic word. And time trapper begins to explain what's going to happen if Monel finishes him off permanently.
It's kind of weird here. He's the time trapper is showing it's like vanity or something here. Like he's like, my son should not see me this way.
Yeah.
And then he sort of draws his, his signature purple maroon cowl just seems to come and envelop him and hide his unsightly broken up body.
Right, and he doesn't even look that much different than before.
Right, but for some reason he's like embarrassed, so he's covering himself.
Yeah,
you shouldn't see me with my arms falling off. And
yeah, he says, Monel's like, I don't care what you look like, and time trapper's like,
I don't give a damn. Which, like,
actually, they've capitalized what he says. I don't give a damn what you look like.
Oh, right.
This is a good page of the time trapper. To transition into a flashback, Giffen does like a truck in on the emptiness of the time trapper's face.
Oh yeah,
face area. And then the time trapper explains the entirety of the origin of the Legion of Superheroes from the point of view of the time trapper, with some little revisions mixed in, some kind of contemporary revisions about. Oh, he talks about the moving through time, the great financier, R.J. Brand. Like that's a Giffen thing, I guess, that he began in maybe Legion 89.
It doesn't make any sense. But
no?
Not really, because how does he know who Superboy is?
Yeah, I don't know. You're right about that. Yeah, there is no Superboy for him to know about, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Maybe he implanted it in his mind, I guess.
Yeah, he can do whatever he wants, huh?
Right.
He just needs somebody to be rich, and I don't know why he needs him to come from the past, but that's what he chose.
Right.
He's just fucking around, this time trapper. And has the origins of R.J. Brand really been explained? I guess they did to a degree. Like, I remember there was some stuff about his brother or his cousin or something.
Well, way back, of course, in the hideous secret history of the Legion, it's when we first find out he's a Durlian, right?
Yeah, that's when they reveal that he's a Chameleon Boy's father. And
then they went on like a trip together to Durlia, right? Or where are they from?
Durla
to was it to restore Chameleon Boy's powers, maybe?
No, because I think at the end he had lost his powers. So yeah, this story that you're talking about, I think R.J. Brand maybe was going to go and stand trial or something for some crime they accused him of or something, and they both went to defend themselves or something.
I just realized we didn't. Not super important, but we didn't explain why Pocket Earth is a ruin.
I don't even know. Why is it? That was something that happened in Superman, right?
It was. Basically, the 3 Kryptonian criminals from Superman 2 Because Krypton exists in Pocket, or existed in the Pocket universe. They existed. They came and they just completely destroyed the Earth, or killed everybody on Earth, killed every living thing on Earth.
Oh, okay.
Which is what led to, I think it might have been Burns' last story, where he has Superman decides the only thing he can do is execute these guys. He somehow got rid of their powers. He like exposed them maybe to gold kryptonite or something like that. But he's like, no, the risk is too great that they could somehow get their powers back and maybe come to my universe and destroy it. So the only thing I can do is kill these guys.
Sounds logical to me.
Right. But that is why it is a wasteland.
Huh, okay. I guess, yeah, I just never thought about it. I guess, like, in the years in between the death of Superboy story and the death of the Time Trapper story and then this story, I just thought that, yeah, I guess I must have just assumed that the Pocket universe was nothing anymore anyway.
Right.
Even though
it served its purpose.
Yeah, even though thinking back, it's like, well, they only killed Superboy. I guess all that fucking Monpa Kent and Pete Ross and whatever the whole of, I don't know, Krypton or whatever, that stuff was all kind of still there at the end of the death of Superboy story, wasn't it?
Right. You know, there's another explanation I've read for how Pocket Earth works that I think I can explain that doesn't sound too insanely complicated. This helps explain the inconsistencies, because of course in Superboy he was fighting aliens in every other issue. Like, there are all kinds of things he was running into that should not exist in this world where you only have Krypton and Earth. This explanation is that the Time Trapper is almost like us, or the creators of the comic. Like, he is aware of there being a pre-crisis DC universe. Like, he was part of that, but it's sort of like, just like the Legion itself, like his foundation got wiped out beneath him. So he had to build a new foundation to plug it in so he would continue to exist and things would still go the way he wanted it to. So Pocket Earth is a substitute for him so he can continue to exist. But it isn't like 100% the same. So, like, by this rationale, like, all of those stories where he, like, I don't know, teamed up with Aquaboy or ran into aliens, those did not happen. It's like, it's not quite Silver Age. It's just a close enough facsimile to allow him to continue to exist. Does that make sense? It is kind of complicated to explain.
Well, I mean, I guess I just don't see the difference between that and, I guess what I'm thinking of is that it's just another universe. And whenever our dudes from the 30th century do time travel, Time Trapper has them go to his universe. And it's not just an Earth or just Earth and Krypton, it's a whole universe.
Well, that would
and
make
it's
more
just
sense.
it's kind of just disposable.
That would make a lot more sense. But I think they said a few times that there wasn't anything else there.
Oh,
I don't
really?
know why. I don't know why, because it makes things really needlessly complicated.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it in a way makes Time Trapper more powerful than maybe you want him to be if he can create a whole alternate fake universe. But also he does that. Like, if he has the power to say, oh, instead of being born with a weakness to lead, you were actually born without a weakness to lead, then he can do a whole universe too, right?
I'm guessing it probably has something to do with the editorial, like, mandate that there can't be other universes. So this is sort of like it's not exactly a universe. It's just this tiny little thing that has an Earth and a Krypton on it.
They call it the Pocket universe, right?
Right. Pocket.
And so,
like tiny.
Yeah, you put on the word pocket and makes it sound small, but it's actually a universe of infinity size, right? So, I don't know.
Maybe
6 of one, half a dozen of the other.
Yeah.
But that's about the only way that I could really account for it, is like if all the shit that a universe usually has going on with a superhero in it happens there, but also like the stuff that we all read, just so it makes sense, they have the Legionnaires go to this wrong universe so that Time Trapper can, keep his power, keep his ego, whatever.
Right.
And I guess I'm cool with that and not thinking about it any farther than that. But
yeah, it's just unfortunate that they decided to, wipe out Superboy from Superman's history at the same time they got rid of multiple universes, because then they could have just said they were traveling to the Silver Age Earth, or he's from Silver Age Earth. Problem solved. But
yeah, it doesn't make any sense that they would make it so complicated for each other to make comic books. these editorial people.
It just occurred to me today that the JSA had the exact same problem as the Legion, but it didn't really hold them back. They worked around it pretty easily, because Superman was in the JSA.
Didn't they write him out of it though? They replaced him with who'd they replace him with? Uncle Sam, Amazing Man, or somebody.
They mostly just wrote him out entirely. Though I think Roy Thomas had that Young All Stars book, and there was like a guy named like Iron Morano, who was kind of a Kent Shakespeare kind of guy,
right?
Like a stand-in character. But just funny that on both ends of the history they had to write Superman out, but it didn't cause nearly as much trouble for the JSA.
I mean, it's probably just kind of a mix of things. Like they could have done something with getting rid of Superboy, but then you have creative people who are like, well, let's do something with this editorial mandate. We'll make an interesting story out of it.
Yeah.
And so they do that. And then in this issue, they're like, oh, well, we have to get rid of him again. Well, let's do something interesting with that. And they do this issue, and the next issue are kind of cool. But then it's like that compounds the like you could have just put a note in the back that says, from now on, we're not having Superboy anymore, or something like that. You know what I mean?
Right.
Just like when they did the thing where, Superboy, he's not in the 30s anymore. He's in the 50s, and he's always going to be 20 years earlier than the Superman stories whenever they take place. Like they did that. Like it's on its own page. It's a comic book page, but it's like, just so you know, it seems stupid, but this is what we're doing. Like that's what they said. They could have done that for Superboy here, but they didn't do it. They decided to use their brains and do something cool and do a fun story.
Yeah, like explicitly address it.
Yeah, by doing that, it just makes it kind of complicated when you have to like write the history books or whatever, some other stupid, annoying comic book thing they have to do. It throws a monkey wrench in the works.
It does it makes for a fun comic, but that's true. They could just happen to never mention Superboy again.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean? And the Mon-El would be the big problem, probably. You'd have to at least change his name somehow. You could just say one day, I'm going to call myself Valor, and that's all there is to it.
I guess. Yeah, I don't think you even need to do that.
Well, I think they were disallowed from using the name.
That's still like somebody.
But even that is
like,
yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah, and also like he shows up like twice in this whole series.
Right.
He just shows up
very little.
We'd seen very little of him, and then he shows up just for this, just to disappear for another couple years.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right when you said that they basically wrote him out of the previous series.
Right.
They brought him back for one issue here, and then he doesn't show up again maybe until the 20s somewhere.
Right.
Like when they're fighting the Dominators or something.
Yeah.
Well,
that was that him or that was him. He did show up.
There's him and there's a young version of him. They're both there. Yeah.
Yeah, and then he's like, I never followed the Legion 89, but I know he's in a lot of that, right? Like he was like maybe on that team.
Oh yeah, I think he was. I never read any of them either. I think he might have been on it.
I have like a Superman annual with him in it. Like he fights Legion 89 or whatever. He's wearing a totally different costume.
Yeah, like somewhere before he gets his own series in Valor, he had some kind of dealings with that team. And it's kind of logical that they would have what is supposedly like a 20th century version of the Legion of Superheroes. Mm-hmm. You put the 20th century version of Brainiac 5, 20th century version of Shadowlass. Oh, we got a 20th century version of Mon-El, put him on there. So that makes sense.
It's funny. Then Marvel copies that formula and they get a huge hit out of it. Because Guardians of the Galaxy was kind of the Marvel. It was their future team. They decided to do like a contemporary version of them, and those are the characters in those movies.
Oh, really?
Yeah, like at this point, people have completely forgotten about the future team.
So anyway, the Time Trapper explains to Mon-El how he did all that stuff. I guess he just gives a recap to Mon-El of the Death of Superboy storyline, and then how he used his powers to create the Legion of Superheroes. Here's that panel of Superboy, the last time we'll ever see Superboy in a Legion comic right here. Yeah, this is some different lettering here, so this is kind of a revision happened on this panel, I think. I'm not sure what they might have changed, but it has to be in the explanation of Superboy, the inspiration, R.J. Brand, the financier, and then all that equals a Legion of Superheroes team. They had some last minute changes in this panel, but then he goes on to explain how there was Darkseid. They beat up Darkseid. They beat up a bunch of other villains,
and that all the times that they thought they were going back in time, they were really being sent off to his pocket Earth.
Right.
Possibly still back in time, but not our time.
It gives me an idea that there is a 30th century pocket universe. I don't know what's in there, because I guess it eventually gets vaporized and turned to dust by what you just explained. The Phantom Zone villains destroy it in the 20th century or something. But before that happens, maybe there's a 30th century that has another Legion of Superheroes or something.
I think it's still there. It's just like a wasteland. Like everyone there is dead. I mean, that's where they're fighting, right?
I don't know. Still don't quite know where they're fighting. If it's at the end of time of the pocket universe, or in the real universe, or if it's someplace within Mon-El's brain.
Right. But
he does say, I brought you to my universe, or my place, huh?
The universe you were born.
Yeah.
Something like that. We get a little kind of montage of a bunch of their villains, a bunch of deep cuts buried in there.
There's Adam Orion.
There's the wicked genie from the Ditko issue.
Oh yeah, but who's this guy? I just looked him up. This green dude. We always talk about him.
Right. He looks like a Micronauts character.
His name is like last time we talked about him, I said his name was like Photon. It's not. His name is like Dagon or Dagor.
Right.
But I don't know if that's right either.
We're just gonna have to cover that issue. Or did we do it? Did we already do it?
I don't think we did it. We did the genie issue, I think.
Right.
This guy is Echo. I think his name is Echo with the big shades. He becomes a Legionnaire in issue 28 when the Sunboy issue. Oh. And they have this montage where they show all the Legionnaires show up to quit. They're resigning in front of Polar Boy. Oh. And I think that guy's one of them. I could be wrong. I could be misremembering this.
Is that like the Emerald Eye?
Yeah. This looks like
wait,
this
wait.
guy?
Maybe it's a Luck Lord.
Oh, yeah. It does seem to have a neck, doesn't it? That's a Luck Lord. You're right. But this is a Ragman. What's Ragman doing in the Legion of Superheroes comic book?
I mean, it could be the Time Trapper. It could be a Durlian. It could be how many cloaked figures.
Yeah, but he has that little bit of his face that's showing.
Right.
I think that's Ragman. What's he doing here?
Ragman, what are you doing, dude?
Oh, I do have one question for you that I don't know if you know it. In this first panel, Time Trapper is explaining that every time they went back in time, they went back to his Earth. He says there was one exception, but he has been punished. Who is he talking about? Superman or Ron Vidar? Is that who he's talking about?
Could he be talking about Cosmic Boy?
I don't know. What punishment did Cosmic Boy get that the other people haven't gotten?
He lost his powers.
Yeah, I guess so. But you're
Like,
right. He's the only one who went to regular DC Universe Earth, didn't he, in the Cosmic Boy miniseries? So that must be
yeah,
what he's talking about. You're right.
I don't know because I mean, but the other guys ended up fighting Superman in the present, didn't they?
In the Death
In the
of
burn.
Superboy crossover, they fight Superman, but I think it's. See, I thought maybe he was talking about Superman, who went, instead of going into the pocket universe when he time traveled, he went to the real universe. But actually, that's not what happened. He went to the pocket universe like he was supposed to, I think.
I think it's supposed to be Superboy. Like Cosmic Boy was my first guess, but I think the other Legionnaires, because Superman first encounters them on the regular, like he's hanging out with his parents and Lana Lang. Didn't we cover this issue?
This is Superman number 8. Yeah, we did this one.
Right.
This is your perfect first Legion of Super issue comic. Man, I can't say it.
But then he hears trouble or something, and he changes to Superman, and he's flying, and he sees them all hanging out in like some ruins or something, and then Block picks up a big chunk of rock and throws it at him.
Right. They fight. But then how did they get to the pocket universe from there?
I think Superboy apprehended them or something at the end of that issue. I think that happens in the second part. But yeah, the reason Cosmic Boy stands out, of course, is he's the guy. He was reading the paper. He's like, "What the hell? None of this makes sense."
Mm-hmm.
It was like the first time he had.
Well, yeah, that's the whole premise of that Cosmic Boy miniseries. Is that Cosmic Boy is an amateur 20th century historian. He's going to take a vacation to go back in time to the 20th century and research and have a blast with his girlfriend, looking at all the old sites. And he gets there and everything's different, and nobody knows Superboy. And also, there's this big Legends miniseries happening where everybody battling.
Mm-hmm.
The first time anybody met each other after the crisis happened is kind of what that Legends thing is, right? Nobody knows each other.
Could also be Karate Kid.
Yeah, we should just assume it's Karate Kid and he's been punished with cancellation.
Right.
Yeah, speaking of nude characters, we got a nude Darkseid in this. I don't remember them ever showing him without any clothes on in the Great Darkness saga, but here he is without any clothes on in this issue.
Yeah, I don't think he's totally naked, but I think his shirt gets all ripped off towards the end.
But the time trapper tells Mon-El that if you kill me, you'll undo all this stuff that I orchestrated to make you and all your friends even exist. That's what the gist of this page is. And he says, that's a sacrifice too great for you to make.
And then we get to... see, this is the panel.
This totally ruins it. This stupid ad right here.
It doesn't fit.
The way to read this is in black and white mini comic form. Get yourself one of these.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So this is, I guess, my favorite panel. But like, there are two panels that always stand out to me as like being iconic ones. And I don't even know if it's because they're good or maybe I've just seen them republished a lot in articles. But the his line about maybe the greatest man I've ever known was your puppet.
Who's he talking about? Superboy?
Superboy.
Maybe you feel like this is your favorite panel because it's the same panel 3 times in a row.
Maybe. I think it's the dialogue, right?
Yeah, probably so.
Yeah, but it's a great scene. He's like, fuck it. As long as I take you out. I don't care if everything I love ceases to exist as long as you go. But it does set kind of a precedent here. I mean, in that he's saying, even if you're not here, somebody will, like, we're inevitable in a sense. Like, heroes will rise whether you manipulate them into existence or not. And as we see, since they keep rebooting the universe, the Legion keeps popping up in entirely different ways.
As inevitable as the time trapper says he is, there's going to be a counterbalance, opposite power, right? That's also inevitable.
Yeah.
This is another page where might look better in black and white. This stuff.
Oh yeah.
I mean, mine's a little bit blown out, but like you see his fist going real fast, but there's this like the shading that's going kind of diagonally this way. There's like little dark areas. And I guess that's, I don't know, that's Mon-El's figure kind of hidden in the speed lines. And then it just becomes a blur in this sixth panel.
Mm-hmm.
And it turns into white, of course.
Right.
But here they've kind of colored it in, so you see his fist, but you don't see the rest. You don't know what the rest is, if it's anything.
I'm trying to figure out, the going white, the white event. I was flipping through Crisis to see if they'd done anything like that in here. This might be the first time they did that. And it certainly is impactful here. I mean, they end up using this quite a bit in DC Comics to the point where it's kind of annoying whenever you see it. But the fade to white and the all white page. Didn't all the 0 Hour books, I think all of them ended like this. So it's kind of funny, like as much as they bitch about this series, and talk about what a mistake it was and they had to correct, they were clearly influenced by a lot of things in it because they used this device quite a bit.
Yeah, I mean, this strikes me as like a really like, I don't know, cinematic thing, you know? It's like fade out, blow out the color to white, you know, like that's in movies.
Right.
But you know, they hadn't done this before, and like, yeah, this is very dramatic. It just starts like the panel border starts to break up, especially when you tell the story with this 9 panels on every page. And then they just start to break up and disappear until you get nothing. Right. But this still kind of holds on to the 9 panel boxes. Right. It's pretty cool. It's like this is the credits playing in a movie or something, you know?
Putting the credits there at the end. It's a lot like how strips, like in comic strips, sometimes the signature almost acts as the period. That's how you know it's over. You don't, when you flip the page, it's not going to be a new story. That story ended with the signature. All right. So now this is Titan in a China Shop, an unauthorized biography of Mon-El by Beretta West. You'll notice that this time it is not the Daily Planet. Or if it is, it's in, that could be, is that DP and Interlac? I don't remember my Interlac so well. But
no, that's this right here. Mm-hmm. That's Mon-El's
oh yeah,
his mission monitor board symbol. This is MEL. But yeah, we'll remember that Beretta West is the gossip columnist from the Daily Planet. And I guess she's written a book. This is like Kitty Kelly writing the tell-all biography of Frank Sinatra or whatever.
Right.
If you remember the 80s and Kitty Kelly.
But this just shows that the Superman ban extends to the Daily Planet. They can't use the Daily Planet anymore.
Really?
Yes.
I thought it showed up later, but time will tell, I guess. I don't remember.
You know, at some point I think editorial changed, so they loosened up a little bit, and you know, they were able to kind of work Superboy kind of back in, for example, into the history.
This guy Devlin O'Ryan, when he shows up, he writes for the Daily Planet, right?
Maybe they'd relaxed by then. I don't know.
Yeah, but isn't that within like the first year? Because he's like one of the new characters like that they talk about in, you know, when they're doing promo for the new series and like Amazing Heroes and stuff. They're like, oh yeah, and there's this new guy, Devlin O'Ryan. He's going to be Reflecto. He's also a reporter. He's like Jimmy Olsen, shit like that.
Well, I mean, yes, but
it could be that they take a long time to introduce him.
A lot of those guys did take a while to come in.
Yeah, their plans changed a lot over and over again, I think.
You know, there's so many different accounts of what happened around this time. Like what incited this, what made them say, that's it, you can't use Superman at all in any form. You know, like that kind of oral history seems to suggest possibly killing Block was the final straw. But somewhere else I read maybe the use of the Daily Planet in these was. I don't know why.
You know what? I just was reading. I mean, I've read the same stuff as you.
Right.
So it was either in Legion Companion or in maybe it was the Giffen interview, but somebody suggested that part of this was like some kind of animosity between editors of the Superman magazines and Mark Waid himself or something.
Oh.
Like it was like I swear I read that somewhere in the past week.
Well, it's tough
And
because
like you hear Mark Waid talk about it, and he's like, "This is my first big comic book editing job after I was working at whatever." He's on Amazing Heroes too, I think, right?
Right.
He like went to DC, and he's like, "I didn't know anybody. I didn't know what to do." All he is like this encyclopedia of DC Comics Silver Age crap.
Right.
And maybe they're like, this guy, he's too much of a greenhorn for us to work with him or something like that. I don't know.
Yeah, it's really tough because there's no definitive answer on why any of this happened. I mean, none that any corporation's going to admit to, right?
Yeah.
But you have like, a dozen or so people who are involved who each have their own theories and their own point of view, and we're talking about something that happened 30 years ago. And it's like, you ever watch like old interviews of like old rock stars, and they're telling stories, and their life story well enough to know they're telling the wrong story. Something about telling stories over and over and over, then the stories start to change. Or I've noticed like with Keith Giffen, some of his anecdotes sort of change around over the years.
Probably the most believable story is whatever like Tom Bierbaum tells you, because he's just not part of the scene so much.
Right. He doesn't have anything to lose.
Well, yeah, there's that, but he's also like, he's not bros with Mark Waid, or he doesn't have to ever. He's never going to have to work with Mark Waid again, or with Dan Jurgens, or Mike Carlin, or Andy Helfer, or whatever. Like he can be objective because he doesn't have anything to lose. I guess that's probably the right way to say it. But it's like he might also have. He's the youngest person in the equation. He might have the better memory, and he may not have the same industry hard feelings and regrets and things like that these other people might have.
Right.
And he doesn't have to worry about pleasing anybody or worrying about anybody being mad. He can just be like, no, what happened was Andy Helfer, he was on his period, had a bad day, and didn't want us to do this or whatever,
Right.
Giffen doesn't seem to have any hard feelings about any of this because he's worked repeatedly with dudes like Dan Jurgens, who was running Superman on the creative end at that time. Right. And I'm sure he's worked with all these editors over and over again in the intervening time. Maybe not with Mark Waid, but I don't know who was doing Superman back then. But, like these, I think it becomes like a small world, And like if one of these people had been like the one person who sabotaged and made my life so much harder on the Legion, I wouldn't have done anything else with him, but he probably did,
It seems like he worked consistently when you just look at his bibliography over the last 30 or 40 years. But he quit the industry a couple of times in between then and now. Like he left to go do animation for a while, storyboarding. So maybe he cooled off by then. But then again, I could also see him being like a guy who's like, when he's doing it, he's really passionate about it. He's probably storming into the Superman office and, fuck you. And then like, as soon as the project's over, he totally forgets. He doesn't give a shit anymore,
Yeah, that could be. It had to have been in that Legion Companion interview with him where he was like, yeah, I went to do animation because I couldn't get any work anywhere. Like you said, you look at his bibliography, he stopped doing anything at DC and started doing a bunch of shit for like Rob Liefeld at Image,
right,
and Trencher. And then I'm sure that petered out. And then he couldn't. Yeah, then he couldn't get back in at DC again until somebody was like, down the road, is like, well, what if we hired Keith Giffen to do this comic book? And now it's like 1998 or something. You know what I mean? That's like 4 or 5 years has passed.
Did he not get back till 52?
Nah, because he did like the Doom Patrol, and I think like Vexed, I think was kind of late 90s. But I think it was after he had left and kind of got back in again somehow.
Mm-hmm.
But I think, yeah, I feel like what he was saying is that he quit because he wasn't getting any work from editors, the people who hire. And then time passed, and then somebody was like, this would be a good guy to hire for this project I'm working on. And that's the only reason he got back into comics. It wasn't that he went over to DC and was like knocking on doors and like, let me hire me. I don't think he's doing that. I think he's just waiting for them to call him, and they stop calling him, so he has to find another line of work. And then time passes and people forget that they hate him, or that everybody hates him, and somebody new hires him for something else.
Yeah, if you say he did something before 52, I believe you, but the way you describe that, like 52 seems like that would be the project. Like that they would think we need to hire this guy because he thumbnails really fast.
The text pages here, the unauthorized biography of Mon-El, is that what both of them are? Yeah, it just continues.
By Beretta West. Still looking for complete seasons of Beretta. Anybody have a lead on that? Please let me know.
This whole thing, this whole biography, these 2 pages that excerpts from her biography, is kind of it just explains that the period after Superboy died, Mon-El is real unstable and depressed and suicidal, and that the relationship between Shadowlass and Mon-El is very strained.
Right. This is like gossipy, trashy journalism. She implies or suggests that the Legion has been covering up a lot of his bad behavior and that it's nothing new. He's been a loose cannon for a long time, and that they've had to even force him into the Phantom Zone once, which I looked back at the comic and he's not. So I don't know if the writers made a mistake here or if they're saying because she's a shitty journalist, she
like she's exaggerating what happened or something.
They threatened to put him in it, like in that, was it when the lead was wearing off, the lead the serum, they were talking about putting him in. They didn't end up having to go through with it, like he calmed down on his own. But here, the way they make it sound like they did put him in.
Yeah, okay. So the story says ultimately the Legionnaires had to project Mon-El into the Phantom Zone and wait out his fit before they could resume their interference in the Talak 8 dispute. And then it says the Legionnaires don't want to talk about it because of another far more frightening breakdown. This episode was apparently triggered when Mon-El developed an immunity to the serum. While Brainiac 5 worked to update the serum, Mon-El suffered a complete breakdown that some Legionnaires have privately admitted was a suicidal rage. The Legion headquarters took a battering. Records indicate the damage Mon-El inflicted cost 30,000 credits to repair. Finally, the Berserk Titan, in an apparent attempt to end his life, simply streaked out of the headquarters and threw himself at super speed into the Earth's polymer shield. In his weakened condition, the ploy almost worked. The mighty Legion had no alternative but to project the critically wounded Mon-El into the Phantom Zone to save the hero from himself. So what she says is that they put him in the Phantom Zone one time, he got out, and then there was some kind of thing with his serum. He decided he was going to kill himself, and they put him in the Phantom Zone again.
I'm going to have to look.
Phantom Girl and Tellus had to enter the Phantom Zone and physically force Mon-El to submit against his will to attempts to save his life. And they gave him an injection while he was restrained by Ultra Boy and Tellus. So shit where Tellus was involved. If Tellus was involved, I don't know when this happened. It had to have happened in the Baxter series or afterwards.
Tales. Well, couldn't it have happened in Tales?
That's true. It could have happened in Tales. I don't remember what happened in Tales.
Maybe that did happen. God damn it.
And it goes on in the second page to talk about like the emotional and psychological torment that Shadowlass was going through by being involved romantically with this guy.
Mm-hmm.
And it says, after that point, when Tellus and Ultra Boy injected him with a new serum to fix him, it wasn't the end of the battering, the psychological battering that Shadowlass was subjected to.
That is scandalous.
Mm-hmm. He was still suffered from violent mood swings and long sullen periods of silence, but Shadowlass's torment would grow far worse after the subsequent unexpected death of Mon-El's close friend Superboy. After that tragedy, Mon-El's obsessive suicidal behavior seemed to take on an entirely new scope, totally eclipsing whatever geniality remained a part of his nature, a grim foreshadowing of things to come. Makes it seem like Mon-El has more going on after he gets fucked up by the time trapper, I guess. Well, she says after Superboy dies. So somewhere between when Superboy dies in issue 38 and when Mon-El gets fucked up by the time trapper in 50, that whole year, a year to us, I don't know if it's a year in the comics. Yeah, he's a suicidal, mood swinging nutcase, really hard to live with. Anyway, that's what this text page is in this. It just explains that Mon-El was kind of fucked up, I guess, is the main gist of this excerpt from the Beretta West unofficial biography of Mon-El.
Kind of scandalously implying that he might be abusive towards Shadowlass, kind of seems.
Emotionally abusive.
Yeah, but the language she's using, it seems like she's... What is she... Did she use the word battered?
Yeah, she does. It says psychological battering.
I know, but it's kind of like
it's kind of loaded terms.
Right.
I mean, yeah, nobody should be psychologically battering their romantic partner or any other human.
Right.
But yeah, it maybe Mon-El was the victim, the dude who was forced to be in the Phantom Zone for 1,000 years, and not somebody else. I don't know. Like, I don't know who is the victim in this scenario. I don't think he was ever saying, Shadowlass, you cannot leave me. I don't think he did that. I don't know. This wasn't, I don't remember the
comics. Don't know. I mean, but then there's something about, they seem like the dysfunctional couple of the Legion. Like, she's cutting her finger off for him and...
Yeah, but that's like some kind of, that's not even a thing between them. That's some kind of religious shit that she's been indoctrinated to, you know? He even said, I wish you hadn't done that. You shouldn't have done that.
I know.
He was knocked out when she did that, you know? Mm-hmm. So that makes him seem like the rational person in the relationship, and she's kind of a cuckoo one. Mm-hmm. Hard to tell. Who knows what happens behind closed doors?
Right.
But yeah, like the cutting off the finger part while he's sedated, that doesn't seem like something she did because of some psychological battering.
I'm just saying, if I woke up and my girlfriend had cut her finger off for me, I would be looking for the exit.
Totally. What if she controlled your life support system?
That would not be good.
It would be difficult to find the exit door.
Right. Maybe she doesn't want him to get well because then he could get away. So she's going to the worst doctors and hanging out in places with red suns, and
that's like the plot of Phantom Thread. Did you ever see that movie?
Putting a little lead in his drinks.
Oh man. Oh boy. Oh, you know what? There was something I wanted to talk about on this issue 4. Shit, I forgot all about it.
What was it?
Just the idea that, imagine that instead of Mon-El, they used Superboy. To me, it seemed like you could have easily, at least within the first handful of pages, and the whatever, the little prologue thing at the end of the last issue, use Superboy instead of Mon-El. Like his grave explodes, and it's Superboy who goes and confronts the time trapper. Like that makes a lot more sense in a way because they had this whole big thing where Superboy dies. And then like, yeah, sure, this is the guy who gets resurrected out of nowhere. Because like in those earlier time trapper things with the Baxter number 50 and Legionnaires 3 and Cosmic Boy, it's not Mon-El who is the time trapper's mortal enemy.
Right.
It starts out with, in Legionnaires 3, it's time trapper versus the founders of the Legion.
Right.
And then it's time trapper versus Cosmic Boy. And then it's time trapper versus Superboy, I guess, to a degree, is kind of how that works out. And it's like Mon-El is sort of an afterthought. It's like he's, in a way, the reason they used him is because he's just the last man standing. Like if Superboy is dead, well, we realize that Mon-El had to have also been created by the time trapper, and that's kind of the logic there. But like if
I mean, it makes more sense.
Yeah, if they hadn't had this editorial interference,
right,
you could have just used Superboy in this whole issue of number 4 to show up and you know have his like second coming of Jesus moment,
right,
and show up, kill his father, and then restart the universe. You didn't even need it to be Mon-El, except that Mon-El has like this relationship with a human, which is kind of cool, and you can add a little pathos to that,
right?
Because there's no Lana Lang in the 30th century or Lois or whatever. But like that's what I was thinking as I read the first couple of pages. Like, yeah, this could have been Superboy. It might have been an interesting story to have it be Superboy instead of Mon-El. What do you think?
I would love that. I love Pocketer Superboy, but I think he had already been crossed off. Like with this issue, all Superman stuff is banned, but I think he was basically banned a year and a half earlier. Like they probably couldn't have used him if they wanted to. I don't know. Maybe since it's one issue though, maybe they could have. I mean, if Mon-El's also crossed off, they brought him back for this one issue. They could have brought Superboy back one last time. It would make things a little less complicated since Valor is kind of the center of things afterwards, even though he's not there.
Yeah, I mean, as I was reading it, I think I knew that Superboy was off limits, but like even as you read it, it's like, oh, the whole reason they're using Mon-El is because they can't use Superboy, right?
Right.
But it would have been a more, I don't know, like
it'd be a better finale for Superboy than what he got.
Yeah, exactly.
A year and a half ago.
Yeah, like thinking about it like that, it would have been a much more dynamic, kind of dramatic send off, I guess. If like time trapper's like, now is my time to revive my invulnerable vessel and I can start my badness over again, and then it doesn't work because the goodness in Superboy is still there. Superboy fights back against him and kills him.
Right.
Like, yeah, that's like a good ending to the Death of Superboy comic.
Yeah.
And like reading it, knowing this behind the scenes stuff is like, the only reason it's not that is because somebody said, no, it has to be, you can't use this guy. And so they just use a carbon copy of him. And it also, like, I'm not saying this is a bad comic. This is one of my favorite ones. I really like this.
Yeah.
But like reading it this time around, like this is the first time I ever like imagined what it would be like if this was just like the glory days. They could still do whatever they wanted. Like, yeah, this should have been a Superboy comic. And then Superboy, he rises from his grave and he goes and he, like, I don't know what he would do. Like, he would probably still go to Brainiac 5, but like, does he go and he meet up with Triplicate Girl and you know, and he's like, you're the only one of these people who ever really understood me. Will you help me? I'm here naked in your bedroom, bouncing boys in the other room, don't tell him, and then they go and they go talk to Brainiac 5, and there's already kind of like in the same way that there's a relationship between Brainiac 5 and Shadowlass, there's also a relationship between Brainiac 5 and Duo Damsel that they established, where he gave her his force field belt before he left the team,
Yeah.
And like they're also early Legionnaires on the team and stuff like that. I don't know. It just seems like, these are some neat possibilities that they, I don't know, just never got to explore. It's like, this is the obvious way to do this story, except that somebody said, no, you can't use X, Y, and Z characters. And so it has to be these substitute people. And it just, like, from then on, it's like substitute people. And it's like they have to scramble to be like, well, who is Supergirl now? Who's Jimmy Olsen now? On and on and on,
Right. Who's Lana?
I don't know. Like, who's Insect Queen? I don't know who took that place. I don't think they got around to explaining that or even thinking about it. I bet that was in a letters page somewhere.
I think there was a second Insect Queen. I think she was more grotesque.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
More grotesque than the Lana Insect Queen, where it's a disgusting bug with a Lana head.
It was just kind of cute, though.
Yeah, just a pretty face with an ant body.
Right.
I don't think they ever really got around to that.
Right.
They just kind of conveniently ignored Pete Ross, Jimmy Olsen, and Lana Lang as the honorary and reserve Legionnaires.